Hello, welcome to the world of physics at WOMAD 2020. My name is Spencer Kelly. I present Click, the BBC TV technology programme. I was at WOMAD in the tent last year, and I don't think any of us at that time knew that this year would be under these circumstances. But here I am on my sofa, and I'm joined by Christer Fuglesang, an astronaut and physicist from Sweden. I assume you're in Sweden now, are you, Christer?
That's right, in Sweden. Actually, in my cottage, so enjoying nice weather, summer weather right now.
Of course, you've got a cottage in Sweden. That's fantastic. How's lockdown been for you?
Not too bad. As most people know, in Sweden, we didn't lock down very hard. Certainly, my main job, which is at the KTH Royal Institute of Technology, we kind of expected to work from home. So I've been working quite a lot from the cottage actually, but this via Zoom and other ways, it's been working quite well.
Okay, so Christer participated in 2 space shuttle missions, the first one in 2006, I think, and 5 spacewalks, the first Swedish citizen in space and the first person outside of the US or Russian space programs to take part in more than 3 spacewalks. What's it like doing a spacewalk?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, getting more into space, you cannot. I mean, you leave even the space trip you travel with and float on the outside. I was doing my spacewalks on the space station and floating along the outside of the station and see the beautiful world below you. It's an amazing experience.
So I've read a book by Tim Peake, one of, I think, 2 British astronauts that we've had. And he's got this fabulous book where he explains the whole science of what happens in space. And one of the things I was reading is that in order that your spacesuit just doesn't inflate and go completely solid with the difference in pressure, you actually don't inflate it very much and you use pure oxygen instead of the normal air mix. Is that right? Does that feel any different when because you have to kind of like super saturate your body with oxygen before you go out, don't you? What's that like?
Yeah, that is one of the big challenges actually, that you have to prepare your body. It's similar to when you've been diving. Yeah, when you're diving and you're deep underwater, you cannot go too quickly up to the surface because you can risk getting nitrogen bubbles in your body, which can be actually lethal even. So we prepare our bodies for hours or maybe a day, depending on which method we use, to get rid of the nitrogen in our bodies before we go into spacesuits. And it's because there's low pressure in the spacesuit. And because it's low pressure, that's why we have pure oxygen. But that's the way the suit doesn't become too much of a stiff balloon. It's kind of stiff anyhow. Yeah, that's one of those things. You don't really think about it when you are in the suit. You can maybe hear it's a little bit different sound because you have lower pressure in the atmosphere in the suit.
And do you have any time when you are outside to actually enjoy it? Because it is a job and you've got important things to do, and it's actually quite dangerous out there, isn't it? Relatively speaking. So did you actually have any opportunity to look around and go, I'm in space?
Oh yes, I mean, spacewalk typically lasts around 6 to 7 hours. And yes, you're very concentrated on what you're working, and that is your focus. But there are times when you have to wait anyhow on something else to happen. So there are chances to enjoy, and but it could be a good thing to even think about that in advance. Because I remember I talked to one of my astronaut colleagues who had done one spacewalk, and it was his first. And he said, I came back and said, well, I basically don't remember anything. I was so focused on the work, so I never took the time to enjoy. So I decided, okay, I'll remember this lesson. I will also take the time to just enjoy. And there were certainly different times I could do that.
So can you describe then, in those moments when you either look towards the Earth or look out to space, can you describe what that felt like, what went through your mind? Because I've met quite a few astronauts and they all say that they've come back changed. They can see the fragility of the Earth. They can't see country borders Can you describe that experience?
Well, it's very true. You don't see country borders, and it just takes 90 minutes to go one orbit around the Earth, so the Earth doesn't feel very big. Uh, we are not very far from Earth after all. I mean, a few hundred kilometers up. It's about 1,000 times further to the moon compared to where we are. But I remember very well at this one occasion, I was kind of on the top of the space station. We're doing some work there, and I saw the whole space station under me, which is about 100 meters wide. And then another many hundred kilometers below the station was the Earth floating by. And there was nighttime, and on the horizon, I could even see auroras kind of flashing. And yeah, it just felt very powerful and amazing. And at the same time, I felt very connected to everything, because we were working there with some tricky things, the solar array we needed to try to repair. And we were working together. We were two outside, 10 people in, well, another 8 rather, in the space station and Space Shuttle. And there was hundreds of people down in Houston, everyone working together to solve this problem. So on one hand, I was very distant from everybody. On the other hand, felt very connected to everybody.
Mm. And did you manage to bring any of the astronauts with you back to Earth? Do you approach things differently now in your day-to-day life because of your training and your experiences of being an astronaut?
Definitely through the training, because you get trained so much into think about what can go wrong and how to prepare for that in advance. It's a lot of good training how to work together. One of the things which we want to emphasize is that, if you do something wrong, never try to hide it. I mean, bring it up so others doesn't do the same mistake. Don't be ashamed for that. And train how we can work together so we catch each other's mistakes. So I think I probably learned more through the training than the space flights itself. I mean, my space flights were about 2 weeks each of them. So that is a short time, but I worked as an astronaut total for 18 years. So, I mean, it's a mindset in approach, I think, which you definitely bring with you.
So we're starting to talk about an era where we might go back to the moon and then possibly to Mars in a few years' time. We're starting certainly to talk about astronauts having to spend a long period of time together, longer than the 3-6 month missions to the ISS. Last year on Click, we went to NASA, and we went to the Hera project. I don't know whether you're aware of this. This is where they do shut astronauts away in a very small tin can for 45 days, and they're literally looking at what makes the right mix of personalities for long duration space missions. I wonder whether you had any thoughts on the type of people you need and don't need on long missions.
Well, you definitely need social people who can kind of work together well and doesn't get bothered too much what's going on. Now you need a mix of people. You will go far away, and you have to be able to solve a lot of problems. So I would assume you would like to have a medical doctor with you, and you want to have some really smart engineer, and this was probably some very smart computer guy as well. And but the most important is that people can work together, being social. That I think is crucial.
Because it could be, and what they were doing at the Hero Project, I think, was, I don't know whether they were using something like artificial intelligence to crunch the numbers. Probably not, thinking about it. But it might be tempting to think, well, you need someone who is kind of a joker, someone who's kind of upbeat, someone who's very caring. But I don't think it's that obvious. And I think 6 months, a year into the mission, if someone's always cracking jokes all the time, I'd probably throw them out of the airlock. Do you think you need quite kind of a steady, middle of the road personality, or do you think that you could have a mix of slightly bigger personalities?
I think it's better if you have a mix. I mean, if you have 6 or 4 just steady people, I can imagine it can become boring. I think it's good to have a joker, but that doesn't mean someone who cannot be serious. It only cracks jokes all the time. But I read actually some study who said, well, it's good to have someone who's a little bit joking. And sometimes I wonder if it's not becomes kind of natural. If you get a group of people together, it just kind of evolves into that someone gets a little bit more of the joker, someone gets a little bit more of the one who's taking more responsibility, maybe thinking a little bit more ahead and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it may even kind of tie together by itself somehow.
Yeah, yeah. We've got before we go to Mars and possibly even before we go to the moon, there are two kind of strings to the space program that I can see. There's space for tourism and there's space for the commercial purposes like getting satellites up and going to the ISS. So I just want to ask you a couple of questions about each of those. What do you think, first of all, about the commercial space companies that are starting to have success now, like the SpaceX, and recently we saw Virgin Orbit, which tried to launch a rocket from under the wing of a 747, which just sounds crazy, but almost works. What do you think of those companies and the different approaches that they've got?
I think it's splendid. I think it's actually necessary. We cannot have a sustainable exploration and using space in a big manner just through government money. It has to be commercial. And I'm so happy that this is now happening. So I think it will be more of it, and it's also that with more companies and more ideas coming up, there will be competition, and that drives development. So I think it's absolutely fabulous, and I think and I hope it will continue. And one of the ways in the beginning to make money, at least when it comes to human space flight, is through tourism. And that's why I think actually tourism in space is very important. That was probably the first way you can make commercial money with human space flight.
Okay, so let's talk about space tourism. Last year we were told that 2020 is going to be a big year for space tourism. I think understandably that's probably all on hold at the moment, but SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, we went to see their new spaceport, America, last year. I do wonder whether space is a place for tourists, really, because it's pretty dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But it's because we don't really know in a smart way how to take care of all of it. Today, diving is a huge tourism thing. People go everywhere and go diving. Well, that's also a challenging and dangerous environment. Every year, more people want to go up on Mount Everest than there is space for. Not a pun, actually, but it's dangerous, yes, but it will become less dangerous the more we do it, and there will always be people who want to do it. And now, though, although I think commercial or space tourism is the first step to kind of make money for humans in space, that will be followed by other things. And Elon Musk and others have the vision to kind of go with people to Mars and start to utilize Mars in various ways. That will be something. Also, now, then we don't talk of space tourism anymore. But it's like flying on airplanes in the beginning was also dangerous. So we had to set up regulations to make sure that it was safe. It works most of the times, not all the ways, if taking a Boeing Max. But it will be similar for space when it comes to kind of sending people commercially to space.
And do you think we're anywhere near that? Yeah, it strikes me that, yeah, this is like the early days of powered flights, but you've got people spending, is it 250,000 or 250 million? I can't remember what the price of a ticket for a day in space is at the moment, but you've got really rich people spending that amount of money, but the chances of that mission ending in disaster are still much higher than I would like. Do you think it's only going to attract a certain kind of person that's both rich and, you know, one of those daredevil type personalities?
Well, in the beginning, yes, but over time it will become more and more people who can afford it because the prices will go down and the will also be perceived as less dangerous, and then there will be more people willing to take the risk also.
I've heard it said as well that on the one hand, we're talking about sending rich people into space. Isn't there a better use of their money and indeed the money taken to develop it? But I've also heard it said that because of the new perspective you get from being in space, even for a short while, those rich, powerful people who are the ones who, you know, disproportionately make decisions that affect our planet could do with a dose of space. And I wonder whether you think that is a benefit of sending, you know, these CEOs into space.
Well, that could be a benefit, but I also would like to say that the money is not thrown into space, so to say. I mean, the money goes into business on Earth. So its money really goes into the society on Earth. So, and I think it's a really good industry the money goes into. It goes into supporting and even expanding the space industry. So I think it's very, very well worth money, actually. But yeah, we've been sometimes, astronauts are joking and say that, well, if you could bring every politician into space, then we'll see the wonder of the Earth, that it's one globe together. We have to kind of work together to solve the problems, and we wouldn't have any wars anymore. That's probably exaggerated, but it's
but that's the kind of
thought.
that's the theory. That's what I've heard said. Is it is such a life-changing experience that you just can't get from, you know, looking at a map or seeing a video. Actually being there kind of rams it home. Would you agree that that's the kind of experience that astronauts have?
It is a very impressive experience, but I wouldn't say that it really changes the mindset of everybody. And it's very hard to kind of say, you know, what has made the person you are. But it definitely is a difference, as you said, to see something on a screen than to read experience in place. And the weightlessness you cannot experience anyway in front of the screen.
Yeah, that's true. What's that? Does that feel like falling? Because you really are falling, aren't you? I mean, that's the point of going into orbit. You're constantly falling. So what was that like for you? How did you take to that?
Oh, yeah, I just enjoyed it all the time. Oh, sometimes you wish for a little bit of gravity, because some of the work you do or that normal way of life, eating, hygiene, becomes a little bit more complicated. But there's so many funny things with it. And the first time I experienced it was actually in an airplane, one of these parabolic flight airplanes, where you can get a little bit 20 plus seconds weightlessness. And I just remember the first time I was just euphoric. It was such a wonderful experience. So I knew a bit what to expect when I got to space. But no, it's not like falling. Yeah, the feeling is different, although it is technically, yeah, free falling.
Okay, so I've just bought myself a ticket to space. I'm sitting in the
congratulations.
rocket. Thank you. What are your top tips for space travel for the first time space tourist? Should I eat before I take off? Should I leave it for a day? Should I keep my eye on the horizon? Should I close my eyes? How do I get the most out of a day in space as a tourist? What are your tips?
Prepare as much as you can. That's always a good thing. And talk to others who have done it. So, you know, as much as you can to what to expect. Then eat normally, I would say. And no, don't close your eyes. You should try to enjoy the experience as much as possible. And so, but try to kind of be rested and things like that also, so you can enjoy it as much as possible.
So if you could go anywhere, if you could go back to space and explore any extraterrestrial body, Moon, Mars, or further afield? What would fascinate you in an ideal universe? Where would you want to go?
Well, everywhere now, but certainly the moon is kind of close, so that's not an completely well, it's reasonable in terms of times, but certainly Mars would maybe be the most exciting. I mean, that has more to offer than the moon. Although I think we can probably learn to utilize the moon more than we maybe believe now, because once you get there and you start to see what can be done and explore, then you'll find more possibilities. But going to Mars, where no one has been yet, then that will probably be my first take.
Okay, well, listen, Christer, thanks so much for your time.
All right, thanks. It was enjoy the talk.
It's been fascinating. Christer Fuglesang, everybody.
Thank you. Enjoy, WOMAD.